Louise's personal background. I was born on August 26, 1950 in Lafayette, Louisiana, a town about the same size of Fort Collins and similar in the sense that it has a university there as well. I had never lived in any other place until Charles and I married in 1991. My name, Helen Louise Cantrell. Helen is after my mom and her mother, and Louise is after my aunt in California. Cantrell is a French descendant name, which also has a line of Indian blood in it as well. I am the second of 6 girls born in our family, where we have a span of 16 years between the oldest and youngest. 4 of my sisters still live in Lafayette, and 1 lives in Florida. Thankfully, we have been able to go through life with different trials and sadnesses and know that we can rely on one another. We all have very special bonds and have a lot of fun when we get together. I feel blessed. My life was much different than any of yours, probably. When we were 5 children, we lived in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and we lived in the same home for 47 years. And at one time, I remember 4 of us sleeping in the same bedroom. My dad had his own business, a laundry and dry cleaning business, and he worked hard, and while we were never wealthy by any means, we never felt like we were missing out either. We all went to Catholic schools for 12 years, which happens to be the same school that my children went to and that the East children and other family members go to. We lived across the street from the school, so I walked home for a hot meal every day for my 12 years of school. All of us did. I'm not sure how Mom did it. Our lunches were staggered, so she was feeding someone a meal for a couple of hours, then Dad would come home. In addition, my mom made most of my clothes, even until college. I remember for homecoming one time wanting a store-bought dress, and my mom telling me I'd have to ask Dad if we could do that. And he said yes, but I wonder now how that had an impact on their budget. Some of my fondest memories were of summer when we would take a vacation, always a road trip with all of us packed into the station wagon, and it was not common for families to just fly wherever they were going to when we were growing up. And on a road trip, well, Mom always packed a picnic lunch for us to eat along the way, and it was generally fried chicken that she cooked before we left on the trip. We always went to Mobile in the summer to visit Mom's family and would spend time on Mobile Bay at her uncle's home. We learned to water ski there and enjoyed crabbing and floundering and spending time in the water, as well as just being spoiled by our family. We had fun spending the night at numerous homes in Mobile since Mom had several aunts and uncles there. Emily and I also had several opportunities to visit my aunt, Louise, in California, and one time when I was probably about 5 or 6, we took the train with Grandma, and it was a 2 or 3 day trip, and we thought it was a blast. We dressed up each evening to eat in the dining car. Then when we got to California, Louise and Stan took us to Disneyland, and we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel with the monorail going through it. Louise and Stan spoiled us, I guess because they didn't have any children of their own, and they did things for us that our family couldn't have done together since we were so many children. It created a very special bond between us that continues through today. Another thing that I recall fondly is that we had Sunday lunch together as a family every Sunday. And when I was little, it was oftentimes at my grandma's house, but that moved to our home as our family size increased. Mom and Dad required that we be there. If we had spent the night out on Saturday night, we had to be home for lunch, and we could invite our friends to join us. And it was not uncommon for Mom to just add a card table to the end of the table to make room for others. I'm not sure how Mom did it all, but there was always enough food and always room for others to join us. I made good grades in school and did well at piano lessons, so well that my piano teacher thought I should go into music post-high school. But I didn't have a strong direction in terms of college because in the late 1960s, there wasn't as many options for women in careers as there are today. I attended the college in my hometown, the University of Louisiana, majoring in business education. I got married in 1969 continued going to school part-time. I worked part-time. I became a mother to Jennifer in 1971, and I graduated from college in 1973. From there, I worked part-time as an assistant in the Postal Inspection Service for several years. David was born in 1978. Their father and I divorced in 1982, and I then went back to work as a sales assistant with a stockbroker firm until I was offered a job as office manager for a cancer radiation center in 1983. When I was 34, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, but thankfully it had not spread and the treatment was easy. And in 1984, Charles and I met. I'll share how we met and how we came to be married. Unbeknownst to us, there were a couple of people we each knew who were trying to get us together. The clinic I worked for were clients of Fiscal Information in Florida, but because we decided to buy a system rather than work through our consultant in Atlanta, our clinic then became clients of Fiscal Information in Colorado. Another lady and myself came out to Colorado for training, and Charles asked us to meet him for dinner. And this is a funny thing. He didn't have his wallet, so we treated. We left a thank you note for Charles, and Sneaky Charles had my handwriting analyzed by Noreen Prindeville, and I guess he liked what she said because we started communicating by phone. Charles came to Lafayette on his way to a radiology conference shortly thereafter and met my parents, and then he invited me to Colorado to learn to ski, and we had numerous other opportunities to combine business trips with seeing one another. Our relationship was based on a very strong friendship because we truly didn't see how anything more could work. Jennifer and David were still relatively young, and life was very full and busy for me as a single mom with a very demanding job. And Charles, of course, was very busy trying to sell computer systems, traveling a lot, and running his company here in Colorado. So we continued with a long-distance friendship, but both of us continued to see other people in our respective locations. At one point, we took a year off of communicating with one another because it just wasn't making sense to me at that point. Then God stepped in. After not having to talk to one another for over a full year, Charles called me out of the blue, and it was right before I was leaving to attend a business meeting in Denver. He politely asked if he could pick me up at the airport, which I told him I'd have to think about it, but I finally said yes, and the rest is history. We decided that we could work things out regarding our children, our jobs, and the logistics. But my situation with my faith became an issue, which I will address in another section. On January 12, 1991, we got married in front of all of our children in Lafayette, and we packed up all of my belongings and I moved to Fort Collins. It was very difficult leaving my children. Jen was in college and David was in 8th grade. The plan was for David to move to Fort Collins after he finished the school year, which he did, and I was so happy. But he wasn't happy leaving what he knew as home and school and friends. So after his 9th grade school year, he moved back to Lafayette to live with his dad. That was one of the hardest days of my life when we put him on the plane back for Louisiana because things had not turned out as I had planned, and it was very difficult having neither of my children here, especially with Charles traveling so much. And it was also difficult leaving my parents and sisters and moving to a totally different culture and way of life. But God was faithful to bring girlfriends into my life soon after our marriage that helped me establish roots here, and Fort Collins became my new home. And I came to love Colorado and all that it had to offer. Charles was very sensitive to my needs to see my children and parents several times a year. So actually the traveling he had to do for business worked out well in terms of accumulating miles to travel back and forth to Louisiana. Soon after our marriage, I took a part-time managerial job in a rehab clinic, and in 1992 I was offered a full-time job with a gastroenterology clinic as office manager. It was a great job and I worked for great physicians, and then I retired from the job when Charles sold his company in 1997. Since then, Charles and I have enjoyed freedom to be involved with our grandchildren by babysitting, and in later years attending their school athletic events or dance competitions. I served in a leadership position at BSF for about 10 years and then helped out in our church's women's ministry for several years. We frequently went to California to visit my aunt and uncle, and have always been the on-call family members when health issues arise for them. We moved to our wonderful home on Silver Moon Lane in March of 1998, and we thought it was a great house for all of our family, and Craig East helped us with a beautiful remodel because we thought we would be there for a long time. But things changed, and the yard and garden became more than we wanted to be responsible for. So when the opportunity to move into a patio home down the street from Chris and Patty arose in 2010, we took the leap, and we now love our more carefree patio home on Spanish Bay Drive. We have a beautiful view from our deck, and we don't have to take care of it. It's great. Home is where your heart is. At this time, I spend a lot of my day giving care to Charles and managing the people who help us in so many ways. It's a privilege to have been called to this role, despite it not always being easy. We both do it through the strength and comfort God gives us as He walks with us to build up our faith and trust in Him, so we can stay committed to one another in sickness and in health. I feel blessed.